Okay, so new topic now, elasticity. Nice picture, rubber bands. So with the first part of elasticity, what you need to be able to do is work out and actually define price elasticity of demand. But a little tip actually for the OCR exam, you only need to write out the equation if you find that easier to do. I find that students make fewer mistakes when they just write the equation. You've got to be able to calculate PED. Then you've got to be able to interpret the results that you get from those calculations and discuss what that means for a business or how relevant that is. So you're not doing the percentages worksheet, but how do you work out a percentage? Is very important to be able to work out PEDs. So I always tell my students to think about you've got a mark on a test, say you've got 7 out of 10 on a test, what percentage is that? Well, from the top of your head you probably know that it's 70%, but if it was a more complicated number like 17 out of 19 or 17 out of 27, you just do the actual number that you got divided by the total number, times it by 100 to get a percentage. So working out percentage change though, which is important for PED, is just the change divided by the original times by 100. Now it's really important to get the original. So say something has gone from £4 to £5, that would be a change of £1, and it's 1 over the original, which was £4, not £5, £4. So that would be if you divide that 1 by 4 times it by 100, you're going to get 25%. But really important to do it change over original and not change over the new number, because that would have been 1 over 5, which would come out at 20%, which would be incorrect. Okay, so when we've been drawing demand and supply diagrams, we've just been drawing demand downward sloping. But actually, if you look at different demand diagrams, they might have different gradients. Now, all of these demand diagrams are actually correct. They're all demand sloping downwards, but different gradients, and they actually mean slightly different things. So elasticity is looking at the extent to which buyers and sellers respond to a change in the price or a change in other market conditions. The one that we're going to look at is income as well. So it's a bit, I always think of it a bit as like a science experiment. So you're going to change the price, so you're going to change the income, and then you're going to observe how much the quantity demanded changes, or the quantity supplied changes, or the quantity demanded of another product, if we're looking at cross price elasticity of demand changes. So we're always changing the kind of money aspect of it, either the price or the income first, and then looking at how the quantity differs. Okay, so when we're looking at PED, a certain type of elasticity, we're looking at the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to a change in the price of the product. Okay, now because PED is demand is downward sloping, so when there's a high price, there's a smaller quantity demanded than when there's a lower price. That means that your PED figure should always come out negative. Now, there will be exceptions to this, but that's more degree level stuff, so you don't need to worry about that at AS Economics. So if you get a number, they're always going to come out negative, so we don't really need to include that negative figure, the negative symbol in there, but if you do get, you can put it in to be absolutely correct, it's fine. But if the number is larger than 1, and that would be -1. So it starts with an integer, so it's 1 point something, 2 point something, 3 point something, so on, so on, so on. We say that that's elastic, and that means that the quantity demanded is sensitive to a change in price. So a small change in price, say a 10% change in price, will cause a greater percentage change in the quantity demanded. Whereas if your elasticity figure starts with 0 point something, that means it's price inelastic. So the quantity demanded is insensitive to a change in price. So if the price is changed by 10%, the quantity demanded is going to change by less than 10%. Okay, so the equation here, and you can either write the definition when you get those 2-mark questions, define PED, price elasticity demand. You can either write this equation, or you can write the definition that's at the top here that I've got my cursor on, but I personally think it's easier to write the equation, so I would stick with the equation. So percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. Biggest mistakes that students make is that they put percentage change in quantity or they put percentage change in demand. It's not correct unless you put percentage change in quantity demanded. Okay, so here's a nice little example. I love egg sandwiches, egg mayonnaise sandwiches. I could live off them. So all my examples are egg mayonnaise sandwich themed. So we're imagining that the price changes from £1.50 to £1. So we've got a decrease in the price. And because of that, quantity demanded changes from 200 to 250. This is what we'd expect, whether it's elastic or inelastic. We would expect when the price decreases that you will get a greater quantity demanded. But the question is, by how much? Is it elastic or is it inelastic? As in, is it sensitive or is it insensitive? So let's have a look at these calculations then. So first of all, we've got to work out this price change. So the change is by 50p, so 0.5 divided by £1.50, which was the original. Now this is actually a decrease, so I've put a little minus symbol in front of there, and that works out at minus 0.3 reoccurring, or if you want to turn it into a percentage, it'll be minus 33.3 reoccurring percent. The quantity demanded changes from 200 to 250, so we know that's a 50 change divided by the original, which was 200. That equals 0.25 or 25%. Now you can either, when we then put those figures into the equation, you can either keep it in decimals, which I tend to do. So it's because the equation is percentage change of quantity demanded over percentage change of price, it's 0.25 over minus 0.33 recurring. Or if you've changed them into percentages, do 25% over minus 33%. But you must keep them consistent. You can't do one as a decimal and one as a percentage because your figure will come out incorrect. Okay, and the figure that we get from that is minus, and you can either put the minus on or you can leave it off because they should always be minus, 0.75. And because it starts with a 0, we know it's inelastic. Okay, so it's insensitive. That's how much I love egg mayonnaise sandwiches. The quantity, well, I suppose it was a price drop, wasn't it? So maybe other people don't love them quite as much as I do. But the quantity demanded doesn't increase significantly because of a 50p drop in price. Okay, so what's very important also, and these page numbers are from the textbook, is that you know the factors that can influence PED. So first of all, availability of substitutes. So if there are lots of substitutes and your price changes a little bit, people can tend to switch to substitutes if there's an alternative, and especially if there's quite a close substitute. So I don't want to start any arguments here, but Pepsi and Coca-Cola are quite close substitutes for each other. Some people might say that they're not because they've got very good brand awareness and brand loyalty to them. But if the price of Coca-Cola went up by £1, I think a lot of people might switch to Pepsi. It's not a coincidence that their prices are quite similar to each other. However, if there's a lack of substitutes, your quantity demanded is probably going to be quite inelastic to changes in the price because there's not much for you to switch to. Say I always imagine like if there was a drought, there's not many substitutes for like liquid, for water. So I would be prepared to pay any price. You can imagine if there's a drought, the price of water is really going to go up. I would be prepared to pay any price because there's very few substitutes. You need that to live. Okay, second factor, the price relative to the income has an impact on whether it's elastic or inelastic. And this is, in short, this is saying, does the person find this an expensive product or is this a cheap product? Now, expensive and cheap are relative concepts. It depends on the person that you're asking. So it depends upon their income and how much the price is relative to their income. So if somebody finds a product quite expensive, if you've got a small increase in the price, a small decrease in the price, you're going to find that quantity demand is quite sensitive to that because, it's going to have a big impact on their life. Whereas if the price is quite low relative to their income, so someone would say it's quite cheap, they probably aren't that bothered about if the price goes up and down that much. So, I always think of a box of matches, they're about 12p. If they doubled in price, 24p. Oh, shock horror, it's not really going to affect you, is it? that much. But if your rent goes up by 1%, because it probably takes up a lot of your income, that, you know, would make you think about maybe, you know, you need to move somewhere else. And then time, the last factor, influences whether it's elastic or inelastic. So in the long run, everything tends to be quite elastic. And the reason for this is because people can alter their buying decisions. So I always imagine going to the petrol pumps in the morning. My car's diesel. Now, if the price of diesel shoots up and I'm at the filling station in the morning, there's not much I can do. You know, if I'm running low on diesel, I need to get diesel. So in the short run, even if the price increases, not much really I can do. I still need to fill up. So I might, you know, be a little bit more economical and think maybe instead of £30, I'll have £35 or something like, sorry, £30, I'll have £25 or something like that. I'll, you know, make fewer journeys. But my demand's not going to alter that much. But in the long run, I might think about getting a hybrid car or something, some alternative, or maybe taking the bus. But on the morning, not much I can do. I've got to get to work. Okay, so just a few diagrams for you here. So perfectly elastic looks like this. Homogeneous products would have demand that's kind of perfectly elastic, whereas this is relatively elastic. And I always get my students to remember this because it looks like an E. If you imagine there's an extra line here, it looks like a capital E, so elastic. And then this should be actually vertical. I'm not great at drawing straight lines, but that's perfectly inelastic. And here is the relatively inelastic. So if you put a little line there, it looks like an I. So that's how you can remember it, perfectly inelastic. Oh, sorry, that's not perfectly inelastic, it's relatively inelastic. Okay, and just for, this is not on your exam, but just for knowledge, general knowledge, this is what PED equals 1 all along the line would look like. This kind of funny shape here. Okay, so actually, when we look at, this is just a diagram from a presentation on demands, and it was looking at the demand for holidays, I think, to Benidorm. But elasticity actually alters along the line. So at some point in the middle of the line, PED is actually going to equal 1, actually -1, but 1. Above that point, demand will be elastic, and below that point, demand will be inelastic. The quantity demanded will be inelastic to a change in price. And you might think, oh, great, general knowledge, again, very interesting, but why is it relevant? Well, it has an impact on businesses. So PED, a knowledge of PED and what PED your products have can help you maximise revenue. Now, when you get to the A2 course, you're going to realise that actually the aim is not always to maximise revenue, it's actually to maximise profit. But maximising profit is quite a difficult calculation to make. So sometimes maximising revenue is a little bit easier to do. So where PED equals 1, or technically speaking, -1, that's where revenue would be maximised. Okay, so you want to get it towards 1, really, to maximise your revenue if that's your aim as a business. Okay, so what happens if you have, here we have elastic demand. What happens if you have elastic demand? What should you do to the price? Well, these boxes here, if you remember from the demand presentation, these boxes represent revenue. And you can see if you decrease the price, you don't have to kind of work out mathematically, but if you decrease the price, you can see that green box is a lot bigger than that red box, meaning the revenue you gain is a lot bigger than the revenue that you gained from having a higher price. So if you know that you've got elastic demand, or quantity demand is elastic to a change in price, then you know you should decrease the price to maximise revenue. And it's the opposite way around with inelastic demand. So you should increase the price. We can see this green box here, it's a lot bigger than this red box. So if you increase the price, if you have inelastic demand, then you'll find that you increase your revenue. Okay, so define price elasticity of demand, percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price, and what it is measuring the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to a change in price. Calculate PED, so you need to use that equation. Interpret PED figures, so if it starts with a number, an integer, 1, 2, 3, point something, whatever, even if it's negative, which it should be, it's elastic. If it starts with a 0, it's inelastic. And discuss the relevance of PED, well, it helps businesses maximise their revenue. So it's quite interesting and it's quite useful for them, and it can help them set their prices.